there's this big flash, and I now know that that means I'm recording. Alrighty, here we are again. I think this is the last one we're going to do because I want to get on and do some practical stuff with anybody who wants to, seeing that we're in lockdown for another 2 weeks. So this is just a quick little prezzo just on what we talked about the other night for the Q&A. I promised some people the recording of it, but the recording was just shit because we had technical difficulty, and I had left out things that I really wanted to put in anyway because I had a time limit. So now I don't have a time limit, and it means that I can put the stuff in that I want to. So what do I press on this? Do I press on this? Just trying to remember. Ah, yeah, there. Okay, so we spoke about, just really quickly, this was no one's question, but I always want to make sure that people are understanding scent work and the search behaviour that is scent work from where I'm coming from, so we're all on the same page, because it took me a while to get to this understanding. And when we look at behaviour, when we look at training anything, basically we pull it apart. If we want a 20-second or 2-minute sit stay, then we start with 20-second sit stay. We start with teaching the dog to put its bum on the ground. You know the drill. Sometimes it seems that we forget this with scent work, so we throw the dog in the deep end, basically, for various reasons which we don't need to go into. But from my point of view, when I'm teaching, when I'm explaining, giving you ideas about how to combat different problems, or you want to approach training, just training, you don't have a problem yet, you haven't yet got to that part, then I want to sort of understand that scent work is a huge behaviour chain. And a very, very complex one. Now, you can look at behaviours and pull them apart on a small level, or you can pull them apart on a huge level. If you want to do it just basically, you've got to understand that you've got at minimum 4 aspects or 4 parts to the search behaviour pattern. I'll give you this to look at more closely. So you've got up the top, find an odour. So when we go say, go find it or search, whatever it is, you send your dog on its merry way to find odour, or more technically, odorants. Odorants in the air that the dog has been trained to find valuable, to follow, and to pinpoint. So once they've found the odorants, they follow those odorants, and then the odorants, hopefully it will lead them to the source odour. They pinpoint that, and the pinpointing of the odour is the cue to perform their alert behaviour, which basically is the reporting back. And you call alert and you get your ribbons. So that's it in its basic. There's other, you can pull it apart at deeper levels, and really the deeper you pull it apart, the more you split it. You might have heard of splitting and lumping as trainers. Well, we want to split it. The more we split any behaviour, the tinier the bits are that we train, and the easier then it is for that dog to understand what each of those bits are, and then we put those bits together, and that basically is a behaviour chain, right? So if you are keen on looking at it and really thinking about it like that, and I really say there's really no other way if you want to really train well and train clearly and not confuse and frustrate your dog. That is, there's a number of other behaviour chains, and different people have pulled it apart in different ways, but I just like this one for me at the moment. So you cue the dog searches for the odorants. When it finds those odorants, it follows those odorants or odour as I've got there, and then it finds source, it details, and it pinpoints source, and that nose on source to make sure that it's pinpointed it promotes the alert behaviour, and so on and so forth. And like any other training that we do, especially when it's complex like this and we've got one behaviour after another, and another leads on to another, and another leads on to another. We've got to make sure that all of those bits in the chain are strong. Any chains, any bits of the chain that are weak or obviously broken, the whole thing's broken. The chain is useless. So it's the same for scent work as it is for any other behaviour chain that you work with. So just quickly again, because I think a picture is worth 1,000 words, here is an example of an easy, I cue the dog, the odour's over there. Whoops, I've hit the wrong thing. So I cued him, he's searching, he follows odour now, he pinpoints it, and that's his alert behaviour. And he's to wait there, and Quinn waits and re-alerts, or re-pinpoints. There's my feedback. Reinforcement is my feedback, and my release from the staying at odour is okay. And I generally will throw a bit of food for them to go and find. So just again, here's another example. This is young Alice. So the odour is there this time. There's my cue. She's off searching for odour. She's out there searching for odour. She's still searching for odour. She'll come around in a wee minute and she'll go, hang on, there's odour. She follows, she pinpoints, and I chuck that food in. So with her, I did not, I was trying to reduce down the amount of time she was looking for odour, because she's a very novice dog, so I wanted to put her in odour really quickly. And I am also not waiting for an alert, and the wait is part of it, because I want that feedback to be directly related back to her pinpointing that odour, because it's about the odour more than it is about the behaviour. If you don't smell the odour, if you don't find source, there's no point in focusing on that behaviour. So you have to be kind of careful that you don't inadvertently train the dog that it's just the behaviour that might be under the control of some other stimulus in the environment, like your position or something you do with your body, that kind of thing. Heaps of examples that I could give you there. Amazing. They're amazingly perceptive. That's why they have worked with us for so long. And so well. So just remember that scent work is like every other behaviour chain that we do. It's like agility in that it is a behaviour chain that first has to be built up by building strong pieces or strong foundations, or the whole thing will fall apart sooner or later. So in agility, you don't go and just run around a course a few times and put different obstacles up in different places. You train, each of those different obstacles nicely, and you get them to criteria. Then you might start to put 1 or 2 together, and then 3, and then you change them around, and all sorts of things. So you know to do that with things like agility. But like I said, often we don't with scent work. So scent work is just like any other discipline in that regard, but it's unlike any other discipline because the most important part, the odour, that cue that the dog is looking for, that is following, and that eventually pinpoints, that is absolutely imperceivable. Is that the right word? Imperceptible. Anyway, we can't sense it. So it's kind of like sending a dog out to go to a jump and not being able to see the jump, right? And having to only go off the dog's behaviour, that the dog has taken the jump, cleared the jump, and landed nicely. So it's pretty cool and amazing. So the only way we know that the dog is in odour and that the dog has pinpointed odour and all of that kind of stuff is from reading their behaviour. And that's where we get into some tricky business if we have not trained the odour, the smell, to be the most, what a scientist would call salient stimuli, or the most important thing, or the most consistent thing that the dog can count on for bringing forth the reinforcement from us. So it's really tricky business. but it is fascinating. So, you know, I just try and think about source and the way that the dogs might be experiencing it in a lot of different ways, rightly or wrongly. There's source odour up there. You can see Fly, and I've got a long video of this. This is just a snapshot of it. But, you know, he obviously knows it's up somewhere. It's such a cool photo. But we don't know where that odour is. And odour doesn't flow from the source consistently and in a systematic way. It is under the control of the environment, the breeze, the temperature of the breeze, whether it's sunny, whether it's in shade. And there is so many areas or factors that influence how and where behaviour moves. It's just an amazing thing. So we really are in the hands of the dogs. We don't know we cannot perceive, I should say, the main stimulus that's out there. We only have their behaviour to go by. So they are totally in control. So it's up to us when we're training to make it as clear as possible that it is about odour and that we are after them to only perform alert behaviours when they get as close to source odour as they possibly can. Fun, 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 fun. So that was just a wee introduction, just so that I could make sure that we were all, as I said, on the same page. So one of the first questions, or one of the questions about the earliest aspect of scent work training that came in, was basically introducing the dog to the scents. How do you do it? How do you encourage the dog to search a entire area? And I think I've focused on and answered the question about encouraging the dog to search the entire area pretty well in the other chapters, in the other episodes of this wee little thing, COVID assignment that I've given myself. And it's basically about where we hide where we set our hides, how we set our hides, and how we move. And then the question was, what alert do you find works best? I'm just going to talk about that now because I really haven't mentioned it. Here's the thing about alerts. I started with canine nose work, which basically says don't train an alert, just let it naturally happen. And when you let an alert behaviour naturally happen, the naturally part comes from where the dog expects reinforcement to come from. That's the bottom line. That's the natural about it. So because if we are taught by canine nose work methodology, we are taught to pair the odour with the food to start with. So pairing is a bit of food on top of the odour. And then when the dog finds that, we're told to rush in, not say anything, rush in and deliver the food from our hand now at source, and eventually we'll get rid of the food that is paired on the odour, which is the lure, and it'll just be us bringing in the food. So basically, the natural bit happens. It's because it's reversed in the thing. I'm trying to make sure that you don't lose my head. The natural bit comes from where the dog expects the reinforcement to come from. So if I, instead of bringing the food in, stood back and threw the food at the odour into the box, whatever, then I'm going to get a natural alert behaviour that is orientated at the source odour. So it's kind of like it's all learning. The natural part just is more about they would prefer us not to initially put a sit or a drop or anything like that on it. You know, we want the dog to tell us how they naturally are going to tell us about odour. And that's where the naturally comes from. nothing more, nothing less. So it's just up to you what you want. A look back is absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned, which generally comes from the dog looking back, expecting that you're going to deliver the food in. There's things you've got to think about to make sure that the dog continues to understand that it's got to stay at source and all this sort of stuff. But the problem with the natural alert comes when we start to hold back and not rush in so quickly. So we want the dog to be able to ascertain that when they've found source odour, if we don't run in quickly, if we don't move in quickly, then we're going to be in a situation where we just want them to hang there. But the problem is, if we've been quick in getting the reinforcement in, for which we should do, so that it's understanding that it's getting the food for the odour, is finding the smell of the odour and not any other operant behaviour, we're going to be in a situation where the dog will perform species-specific behaviour that is associated with food acquisition. So if you just say, well, let's just wait and see what he does, because if I don't know where the hide is and I don't come in and pay quickly, what is he going to do? Blah, blah, blah. He will perform scratching at the source odour or biting it and maybe picking it up. So that's where they go. Because you've used food, that's where their behaviour goes. It moves towards acquisition type behaviours that are natural. So that's where I do suggest to people that they don't just, well, let's just see what happens, because inevitably you're going to get those behaviours, scratching and biting, that are going to come back and bite you in the ass when you're in a trialling situation. So yeah. Alert behaviour is more than one thing, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we do the lid stuff, which is going to be part of this. Yeah, it is. Okay. So there's lots of different ways to teach odour. It's important to remember that you're teaching a smell. We're not privy to the smell, so it's very likely that dogs in the early stages can learn things like, well, I just touched the lid and it's got a funny smell in it, but the lid's not important, because the most salient thing is the fact that they nose touch. And lots of dogs have learnt that anyway, so it carries over that they go, oh, it's just another one of these nose touch things. I think I said in the Q&A, the live one, behaviour bleeds. It's kind of like beetroot in a salad, right? So if you've done a lot of nose touching and nose targeting, and you come and do nose work and you start off by holding the tin out and the dog touches it, it's just going to think it's touching another object. It's not going to be aware as much as the of the odour, simply because it's learnt in this situation that nose touching is the most important thing to do. So behaviour bleeds. Your past history will promote and predict, give you what an animal does in a present situation. And that's fine. You can go on and you can clarify it for the dog, but we just have to understand that dogs often can be learning different things, especially in scent work, to what we're teaching. And I've got a lot of stories where that's happened to me. So the things that we need to think about when we are working with target odour is that it means two things to the dog. It should mean two things to the dog. Every cue, which is what target odour is, source odour is the cue to perform the alert behaviour. Every cue predicts an outcome in terms of, I hear this sound, I get food. I hear this sound, I get a whack on the bum. I hear the fridge open and I get a snack. And then there's the behaviour that goes in between. I hear the fridge open, and if I run to the kitchen, I get myself a snack. I smell this smell, and if I put my bum on the ground, I get this snack. So there's two parts. What I've said there. What great thing? Here, you can have this up, so you don't have to look at me. What great thing is going to happen in the presence of odour. You might look at that if you want to get your science head on as classical conditioning. Think of it as the way we learn to feel about things. So the more great stuff that happens in the presence of odour, our target odour, the more amazing it is to the dog, the more they want to go and find it for you. And so that's one part. And then what to do when you find it. What behaviour does the dog have to do when it finds source, which helps that good stuff happen? And see here, there I've said it's a tricky dicky thing that I've done there, because I've said which helps the good stuff happen. It might not necessarily make the good stuff happen, because if you're in a trial situation and you've trained a lie down as your alert behaviour, you might, when you get to excellent masters and you want those blue ribbons, you might start to predict that the dog is going to lie down, because you have learnt the dog's behaviour and the dog's consistent behaviour and language that happens just before it goes into a down. So you call alert when it's performing those behaviours, because you've learnt that, okay, it's just going to go into a down. I can shave some seconds off here by calling it now, moving on, and get my nice blue ribbon. Okay, so here is just one example. This is not how I taught my dogs, but I've got a tin, there's odour in it. Quinn knows a nose touch, so he's just touching. One of the things I think that's valuable to think about if you go this way, which you can most definitely, is that most animals, when they are doing a nose target, rostrum target, whatever animal you're working with, and especially if it's a duration target, most of them will hold their breath while they're targeting. Which I think is a really fun thing to think about with scent work, because they're supposed to be taking in the odour, right? And again, it doesn't matter so much, because I do believe that if we use a method like this, then the dog is initially learning operant, and then when we get into a situation where we've got a number of containers with only one with the odour in, that's where the discrimination is made, with it being about odour and not about actually touching the tin. So we just have to be aware of what's being trained so that we don't make mistakes. Dear Al. So what's this one? So again, this is just some kinds of steps, some different variations. There are so many ways that people introduce odour. So I'm using a clicker here. Again, Sparrow's done. This is Quinn's brother. It's not the same dog. He's done nose targeting. So you start to get it off yourself. You can throw the food away. You can ask the dog to come to you for the food. Pros and cons for each of those. Blah, blah, blah. But again, the dog is just still doing a nose touch to a tin. Now it's here when you've got two or more different containers, or containers that are the same with only one with the odour in it, where the dog starts to go, oh, it's about the smell. Now I've got the container with the odour in it in a different container, just so that you could perceive it visually for the video. So it's in the smaller one. But usually you would do this with 4 of the same containers. And you saw there just that little weight, and already there's a bit of a paw swipe there. Not uncommon at all. So again, I've moved it. So again, he gets to come in and go, which one is the important one to alert on. And Fly's alert is just to look back at me and stay at source until I come in. Yay.
That one. Yay. It's winning. It's winning at life.
Good fats.
Life. Good boy. Good boy.
So another variation on a theme. This is pretty much the same, except we've got the odour in pipes down here. It's in pipe 1, I believe. And just want you to look at this. This is basically a situation where the dog cannot get its nose right on source. So this is actually, well, at least this situation it's not going to, because of the because it's a Chihuahua that's coming in. But this basically then is an inaccessible hide. So if you start to teach with stuff like this, there might be you might need to focus on the fact that you're not teaching your dog from the get-go to put their nose on source. You're actually allowing them to fringe, which again might come back and bite you in the ass. Oh, and fringing is alerting when you're further away from the odour than right on top of it. So again, it's just a variation on a theme. Come on, which video? So I've started with 2. Again, I'm using a clicker. I did not use a clicker to train my dogs initially. I'm just trying to give you as much of a much information in the video, and obviously I needed some sort of audible cue or audible conditioned reinforcer there to tell you what I was paying. And you can see sometimes I click, and I'm clicking as the head comes out. So again, you've got to be careful of that if you're using a marker from the beginning. That's why I do not, because I want to train up at least some duration before I start to mark it and pinpoint it. Quinn checks that one. That's not it. It's this one. So you can see also that the value in something like this is you could start to shape up a hold, freeze and hold on it, because the pipe is actually prompting the dog to hold in that position. Maybe he can get his nose right on source. But it's just something to think about with these, with anything that that you do with pipes or any kind of prompt that helps the dog perform a particular behaviour. Okay, so this is another way, and this is just showing you that at the beginning you don't have to worry, you shouldn't worry so much about the behaviour. You should worry about the fact that odour is predicting good shit. Okay, so I am putting food in the what are these things called? Strainer here. The odour's underneath in the tin in a glass jar, and I'm not waiting for Alice to do anything. It's not a behaviour that she's learning. I'm just tossing the food in there, understanding that as she takes in the food and as she breathes while her head is in there, there is always some percentage of air that is going into her olfactory system, and thus taking odour molecules of the target odour in with it as she eats. So you've always got to breathe. There's always a certain percentage of air that goes in the respiratory system, but also up into the olfactory cavity. So it's just a matter of tossing the food in like that, and I'm teaching her about the value of odour. I'm linking odour and food together. But again, this gives you a way of starting to shape a head down and hold position, oops, wrong one, on the odour. So this is a day later or 2 days later. You can see I've slowed the food down, and you can see just naturally she is starting to pinpoint the bottom of the strainer, because learning about something and learning what to do in the presence of that something, learning about the value of a cue or a value of a stimulus and what to do in it, that happens together. You can't separate them out. So I get those two things. So this is just similar to what I was doing with Al. I just didn't keep on going with her, but I just wanted you to see some of the steps. So this is obviously the same spot that Alice was up to, maybe a little bit ahead. So she's waiting for a little bit longer for the head down. So now we're in the realms of training an operant behaviour, as well as allowing the value of the odour to continue to be built in the dog's mind. Okay. But we've started to wait just a little bit. So our focus is now a little bit more on training a behaviour. But we know that the odour is still growing in meaning, because as the dog's got his head in there, he has to be breathing, and as he's eating, he's taking in air. She's now introducing the cue. So she's got the end bit, or started to get the end bit. She's adding the beginning bit, the cue. So he understands that eyes on, go search, go find it, doesn't matter what you use, is linked very closely to this particular behaviour. And then she's just going to start to build the middle. And building the middle is all of the variations. You've got to make sure that the dog understands the behaviour happens regardless of where you are, regardless of what you're doing, regardless of how long you take to come in and give that food, all sorts of stuff. And you know that.
Eyes on. Get it.
So it's just a very systematic way for building up their understanding of the value of odour and what to do when they get there. So this dog is learning the cue the cue to the behaviour of freezing and looking,
Eyes on.
with the cue being the odour. So then her last little part here is now she's not delivering in the bowl.
Eyes on.
She's created a loop where the dog goes and pinpoints odour with his nose in his bowl still. She clicks. That click is the release cue as well as the conditioned reinforcer that now tells him to come and get his food from her hand. She changes her position a little bit.
Eyes on.
So it's lots and lots of reps that build the relationship between the cue, the behaviour, finding the odour, the reinforcement. Good job. Lovely. So just remember that that little part is just this last section of our scent work behaviour chain. And as far as I'm concerned, it's the most important bit to work on, and especially to start on, because you want the dog to, when it hears that cue, go get it or find it, whatever it is, to absolutely have so much money in the bank about the value of odour and what to do, the clarity of what to do when it gets to odour to ensure that it gets the good stuff that odour predicts, that this is where you start. Lots and lots and lots and lots of reps in various situations just with that little bit. So just remember, the alert behaviour is about, you need a strong prediction in the dog that the food will appear at source, or the food will appear because of source. Animals orientate towards the point of reinforcement is a bit of a scientific-y thing that I say, but basically it's the truth. We orientate towards things that make us feel good, things that we value. So you've got that part of it. Think about that as the emotional part. When you see a dog go out there and go, I love nose work, I love it so much, they've got strong value in the odour. And they're excited to find it because of the value that they have in odour. And then we have to work on communicating to them what behavior we would like them to perform, and that can be a look back, that's absolutely fine. But then what we want them to do at odour, to tell us that they've found it, that is going to then gain them reinforcement. Okay, but they can't do that behaviour. We don't want that behaviour until they've found source odour, which is the cue. And again, reinforcement strengthens behaviour, a nice scientific way to say it. Okay, so we're just going to carry on with another question in this little chapter, Days of Our Lives. You shared the work with Robin and Lyd to start training an alert. What comes next, please? So this was in reference to a video that I shared where basically I said, with Robin, the first time I have used a visual target from the start to teach the dog the concept of go and find your cue and perform the trained behaviour where you found it. And I also used the lid to build an alert behaviour before I introduce my target odour. So I introduce the lid as something we can both see and perceive, and I can see when he's pinpointed it, so that I don't need to worry about nose on source and if that's the strongest part of odour, so that I can train up that alert behaviour, and I can go through all of the crap before I put the alert behaviour onto my target odour. And every single one of you have done cue transferals. If you don't know what that is, ask and we'll talk about it. But I know that you will have done it. Most of you anyway will have done it. You might not just know what you've done, but it's an easy thing to do, where basically I have a behaviour on one cue and we just transfer it over to another cue. That's all that we're going to do. Remember, source odour is the cue for the alert behaviour. Source odour is a cue. When we say go find it, we're saying go find your cue. It's a smelly cue. That's all that it is. Pretty cool. And again, just quickly, there are two main areas that the dog has to be trained in for scent work: the hunting skills and the odour obedience skills. That's all about I love odour. When I smell odour, nothing else matters. I'm going to follow it, I'm going to find it, and I'm going to perform my alert behaviour. And the practical hunting skills is all about learning how air moves, an odour moves, learning what a residual odour doesn't pay, only odour that is source odour that is present pays, different hunting environments, what I call different background odours, and I very, very, very much separate them in my training. Every now and again I put them together, but pretty much I'm separating them so that I can really understand what I am training and what I'm focusing on, what I want my reinforcement to be about for that particular training session, because we've got such a hugely complex behaviour chain. And you want huge reinforcement history overall. One of the things that I will say to you that I don't think very many people do is I want you all to think about your alert behaviour. Even if you're a canine nose work kind of person and you just want to look back, that's absolutely fine. You will just still make it clear for yourself. I'm pinpointing source. I've said there, I'm pinpointing source. I want Robin to get his nose as close to source. That's nose on source. Then I want him to sit and stare in the direction of the source no matter what. And he will hold this position until release. So if you have a look back, you might say, I'm pinpointing source. I want my dog to stand and look back at me quickly. And if I don't call alert or move in and pay them, then they will look back at odour and look back at me. Or no matter what they do, they can still keep looking at me, but they are not allowed to leave that spot, which is the way that you can then more clearly see that, oh, this is a look back at source, not a look back, I'm confused, or what were you doing, mum, or whatever else it happens to be. you really, really need to make sure that you know your dog knows what it is supposed to do when you are not moving in quickly and paying, because inevitably it will happen. And if they don't have that learning history, you won't know what to expect. So you're going to find it hard to read them. It's as simple as that. Just quickly, if you were one of my students, I would make you do this. From that alert behaviour, we can now pull out all sorts of different little games and little exercises that we can do that are totally separate to one another, but feed back into building up and strengthening that alert behaviour. But we don't do all of these criteria at once. We separate them out, build them up, and then put them back in together. Okay, let's whiz through this nice and quickly. I won't show you all of these videos, but this is the first behaviour that session that I did. The video will start in a minute. I don't know. I think it must have just gotten a bit weird-outed when I initially did it. I don't know why.
Good boy, that's it.
I'm sure it starts in a minute. Hurry up, stupid video. I'm sure it starts in a minute.
Oops.
Hang on a minute. Maybe. Oh, there it is.
Good puppy.
Okay, now my sound's out. Stupid bloody thing. Hang on a minute.
Good man.
Okay.
Why? Good puppy.
I'm just going to get rid of the sound because I don't know what's happened there. But this is Robin, 9 weeks of age. This is the first time he's ever played any of this game. I've just lured him around there just for the sake of the camera. There's food under the lid. I lift the lid up. That's his first experience with a lid. Whoop. Food, lid, open up, food, sniff, 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 lid. That's what I want. I want him to not be pouring at it, and I don't want him to be mouthing at it. I just want him to know he's going to sit and stare at it, and that's going to make the good stuff happen. I throw the food away because I just need a bit of a chance to set myself up. He comes in. I just throw a bit of food in now. There's still food under the lid, I'm pretty sure. But I'm just delivering the reinforcement for in different ways. Good boy. So I don't care about the sit at the moment. Just want him to have a little stare at the food. Stare at the lid. I didn't actually have food under the lid at that point. So it's not that I started with food under the lid and then I stop it. Sometimes I put food under the lid, sometimes I don't. He's still learning that the food that I've got in the bowl next to me is not for his taking. And that's a very important thing for every dog to learn as far as I'm concerned. So I just reorientate him to the lid. He moves it around a bit. I don't want him to be moving it around and snuffling it because that's going to lead to biting it and all that kind of stuff. So I wait way too long for a baby puppy. So that's just stupid. So I just go, "You're just stupid, Peter," and I lure him about, just get him moving a bit to get his brain working. Yay, 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 moving around, and to give me a chance to think about it as well. And I gave him a bit to throw out there. Make sure the video can see it. He comes back, he goes, "Hey, I'll just have this bowl of stuff." I say, "No, you made a mistake." He goes, "But I could have that bowl of stuff." "Oh, there's my lid." "Yeah, there's your lid. Good job. Excellent. Good job. That's it. That's it. And boom, that's it. Good." So it comes for anything, staring at it, just not pushing it, pouring at it, or anything like that. Make it real hard for yourself. There you go, good. Okay, and it goes on a bit. So, a little bit older. So still playing this game. Throw a bit away, put under, way too big, never mind. Oh, there you go. So it's as simple as this. There are some poor timing decisions in this example. you can pick them out yourself. So again, I'm not no perfect trainer. No one is. Don't expect to be. As long as we're moving along, more often than not doing the right stuff. So it was getting a bit intense there, and I'm thinking, ugh, I don't know if I want that or not. Comes back. Good boy. Throwing it over for Spazzy there, I think. There's a little business going about it. Likes his tucker. Good boy. So this is all about building up the value of the lid with a tiny pinch of operant behaviour. And basically it's just don't touch it. Don't touch it. Stare at it. Don't touch it. Whatever you do, don't touch it. Don't mouth it. Don't paw at it. Just freeze there. So you can see the two things are going on at the same time. You see, I'm kind of starting to like this game. This is quite good. Yay, good. And so on and so forth. From the get-go, with my lid, I can introduce the fact that where I stand doesn't matter, which is a really, really valuable thing to be able to do. He totally has no idea his lid's in front of him. Hey, what am I doing? Such a puppy. What should I be doing? Smell something. He's here. Probably a bit of food on the ground as well. And oh, shit, it's right here. And you can, as soon as he came in there and, yep, there you go, good. I don't know what I was saying there, but where my position is doesn't matter. So many of us always stay in the same position, and if we stay in that same position, good boy, Robin, then we're going to be in a situation where it could easily become part of the cue. So we want to move around. That's it, good boy. See, he's still such a baby working it all out. God love him. Good boy. Good boy. Pick it up. The game stops. Really important concept to learn as well. Nothing happens when the lid's not there. So no use staying and sitting there. So once he understands that the game for the lid is the same game that we're going to play with odour, all of this will transfer across. But I've been able to teach it not on the odour, so all of the mistakes I've made along the way aren't going to come along with it. Okay, you get the drift with that one. So there's, I've put it on the cup, on the ruggy thing now, so that there's a different substrate, which obviously is going to hold odour differently. He can't see it as well. Red is a great one to use just because you're in a situation where they can't see it too well, so colours tend to blend into the background. You can see there's a variety of reinforcers coming down there, sometimes one, sometimes a handful. I'm actually aiming at the back of his head. So this is all about just returning to source. That's the most important thing. Bang, 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 bang. God love him. Okay, so now I've just elevated a little bit and I've gone back to food under the lid, just because I'm focusing in this one on sit as being part of it. So all I'm doing is putting money in the bank of sit being a valuable thing to try at source odour. I want always nose on source to be a part of it, because unless he has nose on source, or unless I reinforce nose on source a lot, he could easily lose the fact that it's about the odour, pardon me, and not about the sit. I don't want him to think it's more about sitting than it is about odour. Okay, He's got to smell the odour before he puts his bum on the ground when it's nose work. That's the game. So sometimes if he comes in, I'll be like, do you want to sit? Do you want to sit? He'll be like, I can't. It's this greatest thing because I know what to do, Ma. So it looks messy. It looks like, well, sometimes you'd be thinking to yourself, well, God, how is he confused? How does he know whether he sits or whether he puts his nose on it? And basically he doesn't. What's going to happen over time is he's going to have money in the bank, lots and lots of it, nose on sauce, and more of it with sitting. So if I don't come in and pay nose on sauce nice and quickly, he will go, okay, now I'm going to sit. Now, if I wanted the sit to be more important than nose on sauce, I would start to pay sitting more than nose on sauce. But that's where I could get into trouble of him just randomly sitting and what we'd call false alerting there, right? So it looks messy because it is messy. He's a baby puppy and he's just learning. But my criteria is not so tight with him at the moment because my main focus is on the fact that he just loves this game of finding, at this point, the lid and putting his nose on it and then maybe sitting, maybe standing and staring at it. Remember, a alert behaviour is just something that you have to be able to read. So you can make it fancy, big old stare, and no matter what you do until you say give your release cue, the dog just holds its nose on it. You could do that, but you don't need to, right? So I'm just basically saying to him that all these things are valuable to do in the presence of the lid, which will eventually be sauce odour. And basically, if nose on sauce doesn't work and a little freeze doesn't work, put your bum on the ground and then I'll be able to be sure that you're at sauce odour. Okay, moving right along again. I won't show you that one because it's a bit, it just basically, the video stuffs up a bit. So my main thing was to take this on the road really quickly. I didn't want it to be perfect. I wanted him to learn that it worked anywhere. Did you throw something then? Nope. There we go. The other thing that I was doing alongside of my lid work was we were doing lots and lots of searching for food and for toys. So he was learning to use his nose from the get-go. And his go cue is the same to go find his Kong or to go find track articles or to go find food or his, not so much his toy actually, but he understands that means just go use your nose. And the other things that are happening in the environment are enough to tell him whether he's looking for human odour or whether he's looking for food or whether he's looking for a lid or whether he's looking for a piece of Kong. So again, pressed the wrong one. So again, from the get-go, hurry up, baby puppy. I've put the lid down there. He goes, oh my God, someone brought the lid. It's like, yeah, can you believe it? So from the get-go, I am saying, no matter what else is going on, this is the greatest game we play. Yeah, good boy. It's the most awesome thing. So I didn't ask him to go search for that. I just wanted him to go, oh my God, it works here. So again, he knows this game, resetting. Good boy. It's your mama talking. When you're a baby. You were a little baby.
Amazing.
Good boy. Okay. So I throw away. So it's just, you can see it's exactly the same picture. It's the same reps that we've done at home. There's no distractions. Comes in. Yep, he's using his eyes as well as his nose. I don't care. All I want is that searching. There, he's hit it there. I don't care about nose on source there even, just the searching behaviour. Because it's, if I ask too much here, I could just make all of that go down the drain, right? So it's just all about experience. Good boy. So this is just, again, distractions and generalizations are introduced before the alert behavior is perfect, because playing the game, no matter what, is more important than anything. So the lid is now a coin. That person, we're on a commercial here. ABC, for those of you who know your science. So again, it's under. He's doing beautifully, a nice little sit there. Automatic sit, good, excellent. And there, hey presto, you know, it's just so good. So the way I use the lid to train is that I taught the good stuff comes at the lid. Lots of good stuff comes at the lid. I put reinforcement history in all of those behaviours. So sometimes I paid him for nose on source, sometimes I paid him for stare at lid, sometimes I paid him for sit at lid, sometimes I paid him for lay down at lid, sometimes and always it was stay at the lid until mum picks it up or cues you away from it. So all of those things are okay, they're acceptable at the lid. In any training situation, I might have one that I'm focusing on more than the other, but overall, I'm going to build up a huge reinforcement history in all of these behaviours, and it'll be up to me what order I want these to happen in. Obviously, nose on source has to happen first because that's the cue, basically. But if I want a quick sit, I'm going to start to reinforce sit a lot more than the hold back and stare. So it's just whatever, you know, behaviour goes where behaviour grows where you reinforce it. All of these little bits of areas, I can change that around as much as I want. But more important than anything, I'm not going to ask for all of these at once very much at all, because more important than anything at the moment is how he feels about the game and the value that he has in his mind about the target odour and therefore the cue to go and find it. When I focus on search behaviour training, the food comes as soon as he has pinpointed source odour. And I've got some video just quickly to finish to show you this. And source odour at the moment for Robin is either human scent, which is for tracking, or small pieces of Kong, which have been boiled up to get rid of the human scent. And that's his training odour for detection work. So he won't be put onto oils probably until he's about 12 months, maybe 18 months, I don't know, when he's ready. And at the moment, tracking and detection are just variations on a theme for Robin. That's about using his nose to find stuff is the best game ever. Ever, ever, ever. So here is an example of using Kong for a search. And this is a great example because I really asked too much of him just because of the wind direction. So in a moment, the arrow will come up to say where the little bit of Kong is. We've focused more on tracking, so he's putting his focus on the ground, but in a minute he'll get waft of odour up. There you go. So he pinpointed it and I threw it in. Same hide, but we came at it from a different way. I think there's a bit of food he gets on the ground here too. So there it is right there. Again, the odours travelling up. I think I set it there for about an hour on that in the sun, so it would be moving up quite substantially. But there was food residual because I threw it in, but he can work through that. It's good learning for him. So it looks close, but it was way too far. And the direction that the wind was taking it. So now this is where he goes, holy crap. Now I'm thinking to myself, oh God, I'm pushing him too far. I'm pushing him too far. He's like, what do you want? Didn't I find it? And I'm like, no, mate, you didn't. I start to pay that and I'm just going to start to fringe. So he does his little sit down. Nah, she still doesn't want it. And he keeps on looking. See that? There you go. It was beautiful. Like, it was a gamble, but it was beautiful. You could see the difference in him when he pinpointed. And I've said there, all the look backs were to me because he expected it to be the food to come, but that was a great learning experience about pinpointing source for him, and just so that you guys who are interested in tracking, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are like, can I do tracking and can I do scent work, and in our human brains go, oh my God, they're going to get so confused. The way I'm looking at it at the moment is any scent work is great scent work. This is Robin doing a scent pad at 15 weeks. And a scent pad is basically...
Ups, downs, ins, outs,
had to have music in this apparently. And a scent pad is basically a square that I've gone in and stomped all around. So there's lots of my odour in there, and I've put... in this case, $1 $2 coin, and then we've gone away for 20 minutes and come back and run it. So in a minute you'll see I draw some red lines. So that is the square. And all throughout there I've put my little feet. So, and the wind is coming that way. So the amazing thing when you do scent pads is how you can start to see them hit the edge of a scent pad and do what we call a negative indication. So he's hitting it there, he's walking all along the side, he goes, nah, there's nothing out there for me, I'm coming back in this way. So this is the way that he's learning human odour equals, and good boy, that's the coin. So you can see it's similar, it's the same, it's just two different odours, which is absolutely fine. He can do that. He can do that. And just because a scent pad doesn't look like tracking, for those of you who are still coping with the whole scent pad thing, I know it's very different from what a lot of you do. And it's not my invention. I've got someone who I trust implicitly helping me out with this and guiding us along the way. So here is we did this not that long ago, last week or the week before, I think, where we were on hard surface. So we start on hard surface because that's the hardest, because you really got to get my odour. Aged it however long, I can't remember. So there's one. So all of those arrows are an article. Nice little blue arrow, magic blue arrow. So he gets it, I pick it up. He gets the next one, I pay him, I pick that one up. Finishes it, I re-cue him. Boy, he sees something else out there. He goes, oh no, this is definitely. Remember, they've got to learn what's not odour so that they can really learn what is odour. Now I've got this turnaround business going on. He bracketing nicely. He goes, no, it's not up that way. Where is this track? Here it is, here it is. Yes, good boy. And even a little sit there. So as you can see, I don't pay the sit a lot, but it comes. It's there in the background, and every now and again it comes up. And so it's going to be really easy to pull that out and make that a part of, a consistent part of the behaviour. And just lastly, so you can see how using the lid isn't just what happens at the beginning. I can now, whenever he has a weakness or something falls apart in his alert behaviour, I can use the lid to strengthen that back up. So this was just today, 14th of whatever it is, July. Strengthening up the sit out and about as part of the alert behaviour. So it pretty much speaks for itself. Took my lid out. My lid goes down. I'm going to wait for nose on source, and then I'm going to cue sit. I've brought the station along to help, because that's his station at home, and I'm using the rock to raise it up. Nose on source. And you watch, this takes, he's like, no, I don't ever do sit out here. No, it's, I get it for touching. Oh no. Okay, reinforce. Okay, throw away. So it's the same. I'm setting up the loop. I'm trying to work out where the best to stand is. Nose on source. I can't possibly, I've never done, oh, good job. So of course it's going to be messy because he's not used to me asking this out and about. Nose on source, that's the most important thing. Helping him.
Good. Excellent. Good boy, Robin. Good. Ready, go.
Now, no lid. It's his blank search. So that I understand he knows what he's doing here. Really helps with the clarity. When that lid's not there, there's no point in doing that behaviour. Chuck food to reset. Lid goes back down. It comes on in. Still got to ask him to sit. Job. So I'm starting to mix up the reinforcement placement now. And I'm going to take out the run to see if I can strengthen this up a bit quickly. So that was a much easier sit. Nice. Just going to go away, nose on source, and he sits again because obviously he's in a sit. So that really helped me. So that was good. But I had to play around a bit to get to this. This is nice and smooth now.
Excellent. You are clever, aren't you? You are.
So then I left it for a break. Went for a bit of a walk, came back, did this one, and it was like, yeah, man, that really sunk into his braino. Cool, braino. So we got a lot for that. You didn't need to see him eating all the time. I've removed the station. He zoomed in.
Boy, I hadn't even turned my back yet.
A little bit more hesitant. In sitting without the station there.
Excellent.
Just edited it so you didn't have to watch him eat for half an hour. And this is my last one, I think. Lid down. There's, oh no, two more. There's no station there.
Funny game. It's a funny game, isn't it?
Comes in. Bang! So you can see how quickly it went from messy as shithouse to him putting that sit in there automatically. So you can see just how easy it will be when I want that to be consistent. It's not going to be that hard at all because I've got the idea of it in his head already. He says, hey, it's not up here, but here's a treat. There it is. And even on the ground he sits. So beautiful boy. Good job. Very happy with that. Very happy with that. Okay, so that's our next question. We're not going to. So understand that. You can see myself again in a minute. That is a way that we can start introducing the concept of go find the cue and perform this behaviour, and we can really make use and help clarify for the dog what to do at source odour by actually building a behaviour up in absence of source odour and then transferring it across. So you don't need to worry about, teaching the dog, and that you don't. It's a way that we can provide the dog with information about what to do when you get to source odour without taking away from them the freedom of scent work, and the fact that it's their game and that kind of stuff. And look, you know, I get it 100% and I love it. It's what really got me into scent work, the value that it brings for the dogs. But I see a lot of dogs that are really confused out there because a lot of the time, lots and lots of concepts are lumped for them. And confusion and frustration, it's not a game that anyone will put their hands up for. So when I hear people say it's nose work is the dog's game, and then I see dogs that are really confused and frustrated, I think we've really got to re-question what it is that we're doing and how we can definitely make it their game, and the fact that and one that they'd want to play all the time. Okay, great. Uploading for you. Perfect. Great. You great. No idea. Three.
There's this big flash, and I now know that that means I'm recording. Alrighty, here we are again. I think this is the last one we're going to do because I want to get on and do some practical stuff with anybody who wants to, seeing that we're in lockdown for another 2 weeks. So